I'm very pleased to welcome back to the show Matthew Bowden. People are going to remember that Matthew is the audio engineer who has begun a journey into forensic investigation. He's the audio freak on on X and on YouTube. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. It's good to see you again. You've got a nice Halloween background, and so
Oh
happy
yeah.
Halloween.
How do you know if you're a pirate? You just
Exactly.
are.
Yeah. There you go. I walked right into that.
You did.
But so, Matt, you and I have only met a little while ago, and it's been due to your excellent research. People should follow you on X, and also they can watch your great videos on YouTube that you've been doing. I've really enjoyed watching them, even when sometimes it feels a little bit over my head. But as I said, you are the audio freak like frequency. People can find you at audio 2 underscores. I made this mistake last time. We've got 2 underscores there, FREQ. And you've raised an excellent question. I thought this was a super line of inquiry because, like you, I'm a bit confused by this crack bang, crack to thump, whatever the hell they call it, where people are calculating the differential between the explosive sound of a gun being fired and the N wave of the supersonic boom, and that calculation and triangulation of multiple recordings allows people to locate stuff. I don't know anything about that. You have raised the excellent question of just the time that if we see Charlie Kirk get shot on video and hear this sound, there's a certain distance that we're told the gun is located away, and there's just the amount of time it takes for sound to travel. Do I have this right? Can you take us through this bit of
Yeah.
research?
So the you are right. I mean, the explosion of the gun will travel at the speed of sound, and the projectile, if it's traveling twice the speed of sound, is going to get there twice as quickly. Now, the projectile itself isn't exactly creating a sound wave. It's creating a sonic event, which is what it does is it excites the air around the listener, and it's perceived as sound. It's a shock wave. It moves faster than the speed of sound, so it's not actually sound that's traveling. It's something that's attached to a shock wave that's perceived as sound. And essentially, the thing is the way that is represented to the listener is very much based on where the listener stands on the trajectory. I mean, if you move the listener out 20 meters, it's going to represent differently as if it was standing right next to the gun. And likewise, if you move 100 meters down the range and then move 100 meters out, it's going to be even further off if you hear it. I mean, you have to be in the right place to hear it. Um, so it led me down a sort of path because it's like, well, what's everybody measuring? And obviously they're using the audio, and it's like, well, are they measuring the thump, or are they measuring a reflection, or are they measuring, I don't know what else, like what are they actually measuring, and how are they measuring it? So I mean, to clarify, for what I'm doing with the reflection recreation, it bears it's kind of immune to crack the thump, because even if I measure it as a reflection, the rest of the reflections are still backing up the audio, so it still works in its favor, as credible, shall we say, because basically the you'd have to, even if I mess up the thump reflection and we discount that entirely, I still have all the other reflections to work off. So it's kind of immune to that. So my question was if the bullet was fired from 130 meters away, then there should be, if it was 900 meters a second, we assume on the bullet, then it should take 144 milliseconds for the bullet to arrive. And then 235 milliseconds later, we should hear the sound of the gun. But what I'm measuring and what I'm hearing are different to that. You see the impact, you hear the shot of the gun, and you hear the boom of the gun and you hear the crack all at the same time within 21 milliseconds. So how is the sound of the gun at the impact? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and so how is this affected? Let me ask, because there's a lot of people I think who are going to be confused by this.
Yeah,
and so,
sorry, I'll do my best.
No, not because of what you're explaining, just because it's complicated. And
yeah, it is. Yeah.
From the standpoint of someone who might seek to deceive people, this is all very good. It's complicated. We've got some experts like insisting, oh, this is the calculation, crack thump, it's math, you can't argue with it, stop arguing. And I'm sitting here not knowing anything about audio, not knowing anything about math, triangulation, guns, whatever. I can't really make any kind of valid argument against that. So let me just ask some questions from the standpoint of a layperson. You're obviously working with recordings, from people who were there at the event using their cell phones and stuff like that. Is the calculation that you're talking about specifically today, and by the calculation, I mean, we all see Charlie Kirk get shot. So that's the event. We see that. Yeah. There's a time difference from when we hear the gun and when we see him get shot. Is that affected by where the person is standing who makes the video?
Yeah. So again, I asked a few questions on the videos that I did while I was trying to figure it out. But if you don't know where to stick the ruler, how can you measure it? Because the Mach cone produced off the bullet is obviously determined by the force of the bullet. We don't know what bullet was used.
Did you say Mach cone?
The Mach cone is like the speed of sound, Mach 1, Mach 2, Mach 3. Right. Yeah. Right. So so the Mach cone sort of comes behind the bullet and slightly in front, I suppose. You get a pressure wave. But it's all very dependent on where you stand as to how you perceive that. So it's like you can't place the ruler if you don't know the scale that you're measuring at, and if you don't know the trajectory, because let's be honest, that's why everybody's here. Everybody's arguing about where the shooter was and who did what, and right. It's like so we don't know the trajectory. So how are you placing that ruler anywhere to measure the crack to bang ratio? It didn't make any sense to me.
But isn't there some way, if we have 2 videos or 3 videos and we know approximately where the person was standing based on what the camera sees, can't that somehow be used to figure out?
I mean, if you so we take the loci center and the back right corner, for example. If you put a shooter in either one of them locations, you're going to get the crack to bang stuff, like the audio, and it's going to represent very differently from both locations. It's just the nature of how it works. It travels with the bullet, doesn't it? So that if you change the trajectory of the bullet, then the representation shifts direction as well. Sort of geometric, It's not a linear process. So what I did after asking a load of questions on YouTube and getting a load of gun wizards come in and explain how it works, was I then broke down all the individual frequencies in like the original sound into individual frequencies, ranging from 18 kilohertz down to 40 hertz. So we can see which one's a reflection, and we can see which one's a direct sound in like. Milo, go away. Sorry, Mr. Dinkles is trying to get in here.
Oh, let's get him on. I like Mr. Dinkles.
He's a little bugger.
Is he a bulldog?
Yeah.
He's a good-looking guy.
A pocket bully, they call him over here. It's like an American bulldog, just half the size. But yeah, so I think if I can, I'll just share my screen.
Sure.
Share sound. So this is just a copy over here of the back right 7 meter mic, which is to Charlie's right, back a little bit, about 7 meters away. And it's the stereo mic that we looked at. As one side was louder than the other the last time I was on. So what I've done is I went onto YouTube and I got this video of Crack to Bang actually. I'm in the wrong window there. Of Crack to Bang. So this guy, he's done. He's got his camera. I don't know if everybody can see that. See if I can make it a bit big. I don't know if it will. Right, so you can see he's sitting there, but he's got a camera next to him, and you can see the audio's off. And on the first shot, the audio comes on when he speaks, so you can hear the sound of the gun. And then it switches over to this side where the audio is on with the target. So he's got a camera and a microphone at the target. And you can literally hear the bang to crack and the difference between the rifle sound close and the crack. And that is the difference here. Well, if I just turn this one off and turn that one on, hopefully it's not too loud. Just let me know if it is, and I will. So you'll hear the dry gun sound there, and then you'll hear the crack to bang afterwards.
Oh, wow, it sounds a lot different.
It is so much different. The profile of the gun is a boom, isn't it? It's it's a bassy explosion. It's an event, whereas the crack,
and it like rolls off too. The crack is super quick.
It's super quick. You can see it sort of fades out. That's the bullet traveling away in the waveform. You can see the point where the bullet hits the microphone and passes by. This is this part here, and this is it traveling off into the distance. These are the little reflections coming off the surroundings. But the thump, by definition, is lower in pitch. I mean, think about it. Crack, thump. I mean, one's high pitched, one's low pitched. That's the whole nature of the game. You see? So it's like a... But what I'm hearing here is...
Wait, Matt. So in that second one that you were showing us, these zoom right back in on that again. So the first thing we're seeing there in the waveform,
that's the
firing of the gun? No, that's the breaking of the sound barrier.
That's the bullet. Yeah. As I said, the relationship changes between this. So it's the bullet whizzing past, essentially.
Breaking the sound barrier.
Yeah,
right?
It's already breaking the sound barrier, so it's creating a crack, because it's a sonic event. It's disturbing the sound field, and everybody perceives that as audio, but it's the shockwave coming off the bullet breaking the laws of physics, shall we say, not breaking the laws of physics.
And then the second thing we see in the timeline here is the explosive charge in the gun that launches the bullet.
Yeah, exactly. This is the gun sound that's following behind, because the bullet's moving faster than the speed of sound.
Right.
You see.
Right.
So then if we play them again, just real quick, you can hear one's a clap, one's a thump. Yeah. Right. Okay. He's got different microphones to what's being used in this recording. This one's a lot better for gunshots. But again, you could, if I turn that one off and turn this one on, you can just hear that it is a big boom there. And I'll zoom in here a bit as well. We'll have a look at the waveform too. Oh, silly me. We've got to turn it on. There we go. So you can hear it's a boom. If I just turn this one off, we'll play it again. You can hear it's a gunshot. It's not a clap. Do you see? Can you hear that?
It's hard for me to tell. I mean, I hear it, of course.
There's high, like you can see it in the spectrum here, right? One second.
Wow.
You can see it in the spectrum. All of this low stuff shouldn't be there. The clap should exist, say, from this line upwards. So all of this is gun sound. Yeah, it's the explosion of the rifle, to my ears anyway. And what I notice in the waveform as well is, again, an echo is a repeat of the sound. So if you look at the front of this waveform, we've got
it looks similar, yeah.
And then we've got this side over here. It's got the same bit there.
Weaker, but similar.
Yeah, it will be weaker. And there'll be extra, as the sound sort of reflects off of close surfaces, it will add extra spikes and it will spread out and obviously diffuse over time, the more it echoes. But you can see there's a sort of an M in the waveform there.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
see this,
Uh-huh.
and you can
Uh-huh.
it's over
Yeah.
here as well. Look,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
see you can see next to it. There's a W, and
Hmm.
there's a W next to it. I mean, to me, this is a repeat of the
I
waveform. I mean,
agree.
it's not a case of. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't a sonic event, because there definitely was, which I'll show you in a second. But there is, to my ears and to the waveform, that is the thump is a reflection off the ground, or something else, a big building, but it's more likely the ground. It's not, because it's every frequency, and I'll show you that now.
Reflecting off the ground, you're saying, the echo.
Yeah, 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 or something else. I mean, it could be a wall. I mean, to cover the 40 hertz region, this is what we're going to do now. It's just, look, what I've done is I've re-recorded this audio out several times, just using the EQ to separate different frequencies. So we've got 18 kilohertz all the way down to 40. Well, I've gone to 19 hertz here, but we've gone to 40 hertz, which is really low bass waves.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is, if it's a clap, you shouldn't hear it at 40 hertz at all.
Too high pitched.
Yeah, let me just make sure everything there's off, other than the right channels. And then if we play it from the beginning, you'll hear that it's got you can hear the sonic event, because it lines up with all of these. And yeah, essentially you just get the boom. Hopefully it plays. Oh, I've got one turned on that shouldn't be turned on. Silly me. There we go. Hopefully it'll be audible. I mean, if you're on a phone, you probably won't hear it, but you might hear the clicks. Can you hear that?
Very low and quiet.
I don't know if I can turn it up. I don't really want to blow people's heads off.
I mean, we get it. It's a low
you can
frequency and low volume.
A boom. It's a boom, boom. It's the sonic event. You know, it's literally the gun firing, because that's the clap shouldn't make an event at 40 hertz. You see?
So okay. So let's pause here for a second, because I know you don't want to make too many conclusions, but I do like to kind of exclude things based on what you're finding. So this seems inconsistent with just one guy going on a roof and firing a normal supersonic rifle, because if that's what happened, we would hear the low frequency boom, the explosion of the hammer hitting a shell casing, causing an explosion within the gun and sending the projectile. And separate from that, we would hear the relatively high frequency crack of the bullet going supersonic, breaking the sound barrier. And those would be two distinct events, but you're seeing a problem there.
I am seeing a problem, but it's not so cut and dry, because obviously, as I said, it's geometrically aligned. It's not linear. So, you know, there definitely is a supersonic event happening. You know, it's going through every frequency. You can't fake that, you know, and ultimately the crack is happening as well. So if I turn on...
Well, let me ask a better question. Are you able to determine anything from what you've found here about how far away from this particular recording the shooter would have been?
I'd put him within 50 meters. I would have thought maybe 60 tops, you know.
And so this recording that you're using, what sort of stuff is 50 meters away from the person making this recording?
What I've done is I've gone to the higher frequencies here. You can see the thump still, so it's still there, right? So there is a crack that happens, but it happens at the same time as the gun, which means, and the impact, I will add, the impact happens at the same time as well. So without the impact being taken into the equation, you're sort of missing a third of the equation to be able to work out crack to bang. Okay. But there is a sonic event, because you can hear it in the highs. It is a clap, and but it's happening at the same time as the bullet, which means the gun is close. It's not taking 200 and whatever milliseconds, 35 milliseconds to get there.
And just to also further clarify this, we should see, the first thing that we would notice is we basically, or does it happen simultaneously that you see Charlie get shot and hear the supersonic crack?
Everything happens within the 21 milliseconds within that pink bit. Him getting
so what does
shot,
that tell us?
It says the gun's a lot closer than 130 meters, because the sound of the gun is there and it's not. So if we just look at this timeline that I put out down underneath, this is what it would be like. Yeah. So the shot would be fired. The impact would happen. You would hear a clap just before the impact because the bullet's passing where you're standing.
Right.
And or it will be on impact if you're standing right next to Charlie, for example. But the sound of the gun won't come till there. You won't hear the boom of the rifle until it hits this yellow marker. So why are we hearing it at the beginning? That's my question. We shouldn't.
So it does suggest that whatever it is that hit him. Let me examine this through the lens of a theory that I've proposed based on evidence having nothing to do with sound. If some other gun that is suppressed such that nothing that the gun does is easily detected by microphones, let's say it's from the standpoint of a microphone, it's suppressed with a mitigator or a silencer, it's muffled sufficiently that the sensitivity of the microphones just basically don't hear it at all over the crowd noise or whatever. It doesn't go supersonic ever. Let's just, for the sake of recording, call it completely silent. If that is the gun that shot him and all these other events are happening, am I correct to presume that that fits in with the evidence that you've found here? Something else?
It could do, yeah. I mean, like, I will say that if how do you put it? If you had a guy shooting from the Losi Center and you had a guy with, I don't know, a firecracker in the back corner, the reflections caused by that firecracker would come back to the microphone still, but they will be different geometrically to the ones that came from the Losi Center.
Just to avoid confusing people, let's lay it out in the scenario that I'm talking about. Let's say we have someone in the tunnel or behind the tunnel shooting through it with a PCP air rifle, and I've seen some of those that when you put a mitigator on them, it literally just sounds like, James Bond firing a silencer, which is unrealistically quiet. It's like very quiet. So if we have somebody back there shooting Charlie and that's the shot that kills him from behind, and somebody else on the roof of some building just shooting a supersonic round overhead, off into the distance or down into the dirt where it hits nobody and doesn't get seen by any camera. That supersonic rifle is creating a sound from some distance that's being recorded with this traditional crack thump, but it doesn't match, with the timing of when Charlie is actually struck by a projectile.
Oh, right, yeah. So, I mean, I think the problem there is the Mach code, because you do hear a clap, which means a supersonic projectile did fire that way. Now, whether it hit Charlie, I don't know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm not a gun guy, so I just have.
There was a supersonic round fired. I have never presumed or attempted to explain that there wasn't. My premise is we've got a distraction on the roof. We know we have a visual distraction on the roof. We're given videos of somebody running on the roof. The FBI releases a surveillance video of a guy jumping off of a roof. If there is deception and if it's coming from the FBI, they want us to look on the roof. That follows logically with the notion that we've got somebody, maybe on a different roof, firing a supersonic round. I'm saying completely separate from those two events, there's someone hiding in the tunnel with a silent subsonic PCP gun, and that shoots the kill shot at Charlie. That would explain why we see him get shot and then hear these supersonic events out of proper time.
If I could get a recording from behind the tunnel, I could nail that theory down. But I don't have one. Ultimately, I couldn't obviously agree or disagree because I haven't measured it. But you would think if that was possible, then, well, it is possible. Of course it's possible. Anything's possible. But if you thought that did happen, then a lot more people would see it. But then that doesn't mean that it
Would see
didn't
what?
happen. Would see somebody doing something like that. But then at the same time, that doesn't mean that they would see somebody. So there's too many variables from my perspective, and my brain goes on overload because I don't know. All I can really do is measure the audio, provide what I've got as the measurements, and if there is a recording from behind that tunnel, that like from literally outside the back, you know, somebody videoing out the back, and then the rifle goes off, and we could get a copy of that. We could totally test that, because ultimately, if you come from behind the tunnel, the sound isn't presented in the courtyard, you know, to defend your point there, because it is a valid one. So the sound wouldn't enter the courtyard. And if a distraction happens, sure, viable if you wanted to dress it up that way. I mean, my job here is really just to measure the audio, not to sort of fantasize about what happened, because as soon as I do that, I might become biased in what I measure, and I'm trying my best not to get involved in too much of theory and just measure
and also.
it. And then,
well, I want to stay away from words like fantasize, because I didn't fantasize this. We've got video evidence.
Don't take that as me saying, like, like that's just.
We've got video evidence that tells us other things. And again, we see this projectile, what I say is a projectile, coming from behind Charlie. And just like there's confusing elements in this audio evidence, there's confusing elements in the video evidence. But I do believe I've been able to explain why that confusion has been introduced, and the explanation makes a lot of sense in my view. And so that causes me to want to further examine the theory. So again, I don't know. I haven't seen a video of anybody recording from behind the tunnel, and it doesn't make too much.
Really interesting.
Doesn't make too much sense that there would be somebody back there, because obviously Charlie was what people were recording. It's unlikely that somebody's just walking around back there recording events. So sometimes when I'm trying to figure this out, we do want to fill in some blanks, and there's going to be logic to something that anybody does. If you're trying to go from New York to Utah, logically you get on a plane, you get on a train, you get in a car, somehow you're going there. So if you're trying to distract people to shoot Charlie from behind a tunnel, which is, what I'm talking about, there's certain things that you're going to do. Somebody would be back there, and if we presume that it is this, the PCP rifle I come to by looking at the virtually equidistant spacing of these images of the projectile. And again, when there's no way to go to one of your countrymen, when we eliminate all of the improbable things or the impossible things, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, it's got to be the answer. So I realize it's improbable for some people to conceive of this notion of Dolby Vision, HDR, and these other things that I've been talking about having the kind of effects on the video that I say that they have had. But it's just, that is science. That's how the software works. So absent any other better explanation, I'm sticking with that explanation, and it makes quite a lot of sense to me.
There's nothing wrong with it. I think everybody's explanation is just as strong as everybody else's. I mean,
I disagree with that, though, Matt.
There's more evidence. I mean, again, I could point out obviously audio evidence. You're a video guy, you can do video evidence. I think it's when they all come together at the end is when we can sort of settle on something, because at the moment it's just a little bit too wild, isn't it?
Not necessarily all come together. I think certain evidence eliminates other evidence. For instance, some people have said this is a bug. And what I'm saying is, no, that doesn't match the behavior of other bugs in this same video. These 3 dots are in essentially a straight line going right towards the back of his head. The next instant, there's something coming out the front of his neck. That's consistent with a bullet flying through the back of his head. Something deflecting off of his bones downward 19 degrees is consistent with how bullets act. These things are equidistant, spaced apart. If they were photographed 1/240th of a second apart, they're traveling approximately 2 to 3 feet, which is equal to approximately 500 feet per second, which is equal to the muzzle velocity of a 50 caliber PCP rifle or gun. And that would be deadly. It seems to strike the necklace and break it in front, causing that pendant to go flying either up into the shirt and the chain to fly backward. All of that seems consistent with physics. So in my view, that eliminates the hypothesis that this is a bug. We also see lots of other images of bugs flying around in this video. No other instance shows them equidistant across frames, flying in a straight line like that. Bugs are biological creatures that just fly around in all kinds of ways. And then when we go to a different video from the other side, we see this kind of shock wave at the back of Charlie's head. I don't know if you've seen that bit of video. Let me see if we can show that without getting a, I don't want to get a violent content.
I think I might have seen it, yeah. I mean, because I'm trying not to let anything sort of, I'm not even watching many videos on it at the moment, because I'm just trying to be as clean and honest as I can about what the audio does. And I think you've given me a bit of direction there, actually. What would be a really good thing to do would be for me to test each location. I think we have 4 proposed locations: the tunnel, the Losi Center, the left building on the right, on the left of Charlie, sorry, the left building, the big white one on the left. I don't know what it's called, the zone. And then you've got the back right corner as well. So if I measure the reflections, they'll either fit in one place or another place, or they won't. And that will be pretty spot on to the physics of how the audio traveled.
Right. See, and to be clear, the PCP gun that I'm talking about is not going to have remotely the same characteristics of a traditional rifle, because there's no explosive charge in the gun. Yeah. It's compressed air. And the sound that it makes, it can be very, very close to silence, certainly for the sake of what we're talking about here. And that's another reason, again, I go to logic now. We've got video evidence, we've got audio evidence, and then we've got the logic of what a criminal mind would come up with in planning this crime. Because people might say, well, why would you even use a PCP? It's interesting, Matt, because, I'm not a gun enthusiast either. I haven't owned guns. I've only shot them a very limited number of times. I didn't know anything about PCP rifles before this whole Charlie Kirk incident.
Never even heard of them. Yeah.
Right. And what I'm discovering is that people who are gun enthusiasts initially were like, air rifle, that's ridiculous, because they think I'm talking about a children's toy, like a Daisy BB gun that you pump up with your hand. That's not it at all. In fact, one guy who's a former Navy, what is it, NCIS, Navy Criminal Investigative Services, who's a military guy who is also in law enforcement, he said after I did his show, he went and looked into it, and he was shocked to learn that over the last 20 years, these pre-charged pneumatic rifles have become extremely sophisticated. They're used in big game hunting, and he said that he now agrees that it's possible. So here, I can step through frame by frame. This is a totally different video. Doesn't show the projectiles, doesn't have anything to do with my, 120 hertz analysis. But from this angle, the first thing we see is what I think is an air pressure event. Something I think has just hit the back of Charlie's head right about here. And, there's air pressure. When you go up in an airplane, the air pressure changes. When you go, driving in a car, you feel the air moving around you. So there's air resting around Charlie while he's sitting there. Something comes 500 feet per second, hits this little pocket at the small of his neck here, and it pushes air outward. I think, haven't proven this yet, but I think it's pushing air under his shirt in this very small, localized area. This is a very lightweight, thin fabric shirt. And look at his hair. Look at this ripple at the back of his head. I don't understand how this ripple would be caused if he's shot somewhere in the front of the neck. This ripple is something's just hit him in the back of the head, and just like slapping your hand on a pond, waves ripple outward. And look, here we are 1/60th of a second later. This wave on the skin at the back of his head is starting to move differently. 1/60th of a second after that, now it's completely done. That wave is done. This thing is out the front of his neck. We can see that this allegedly exploding microphone is still attached to his shirt, so I don't think it's exploded. This chain, let me step back a second. Let's watch what the chain is doing, because this also, I think, tells a tale. Here, he's still alive. Nothing has hit him yet. And in the next 1/60th of a second, now he's been hit. And in this 1/60th of a second, the bullet is through his neck. 1/60th of a second in bullet time is a lot of time. Fabric and air and skin and fluids inside your body react a lot more slowly than a bullet. The bullet is already through his neck. It's agitating the necklace. See, the necklace is already blurred because it's been hit, I allege. And just like if somebody walked up in front of you and I was standing face to face and put my finger on your necklace and started pulling it towards me until it snapped, and the necklace snapped in front where my finger was, the energy would cause the necklace to flip backwards off of your neck. That appears to be what's happening. The bullet has hit the necklace in the front. It's flipping backwards. The chain flips backwards. Perhaps the crucifix caused the disruption at the front of his shirt that we can't see from this angle. And now the shirt is relaxing. This disruption at the back of his hair has completely relaxed. The wave has rippled through. His hair is back to normal. The chain continues to move, and it's moving backwards consistently. He's now shot. Now he's having this neuromuscular response, the decorticate posture. Now again, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a neurosurgeon. I never heard of that before medical doctors told us about it. But the decorticate posturing, I'm told by more than one person, is a response to damage in the red nucleus of the brain, which, guess what, is right back here. So I see a lot of evidence that's consistent with him being shot from behind. And then when I saw you talking about this inconsistency with the timing of the sounds associated with a supersonic rifle, let's call it that, inconsistency with the timing of the normal sounds, that is consistent with something else unrelated to the supersonic rifle shooting and killing him.
Could be. I'm not here to deny or jump on board with you on anything, because I can't, until I've measured it, I can't say it, because that's the idea of my goal here, was just to let the audio speak, because I have to stay in my lane, because when we start talking about medical and biological stuff, and I don't know. When it comes to ballistics, guns, I have no idea. I could say it's possible, sure.
Well, and of course, I'm not asking.
I have no idea, because one, I've never even fired a gun or really heard.
I'm not asking you to contest or refute the medical evidence.
Okay.
What I might suggest to you, just as a person observing the event, when multiple doctors say that's decorticate posture, I haven't heard doctors come forward and say it's not decorticate posture. I haven't seen all that arguing. What I did see in the realm of gun experts, which also I put into my calculation, in the beginning, we saw that frontal shot where we see the hole in Charlie's neck, and people were saying that's not a 30-06. Now, I couldn't come to that conclusion on my own, because I've never fired a 30-06. But what happened was I started hearing lots of people say that's not from a 30-06. Then I saw hunting YouTube channels and gun experts demonstrating the firing of a 30-06 on a pork leg and various other things. And then I could observe, okay, that's consistent with what these experts are saying. That's not what a 30-06 would do. 30-06 would explode his neck. Then we heard other people say, well, maybe it's a 2.26. Other people said, no, too much kinetic energy from that type of round. This is an exit wound. This is an entry wound. And what I derived from that was all these experts arguing about what we see at the front of his neck make me think it's something that lots and lots of experts don't have a lot of experience observing. And that, again, takes me back to the novel concept of an exit wound from a low muzzle velocity, low kinetic energy round like this PCP round. So, I mean, again, I'm not asking you, Matt, to weigh in or go outside of your lane on anything. I'm just saying, I'm just talking about my process when I absorb. Like when you give us your audio input, I take your input and I put it into my calculation. Now, if some other audio expert came forward and said, here is what Matthew Bowden said, and here's why it's incorrect, you, I think, if this person had a good point, would say, you know what, that's a good point that I hadn't thought of, and I would do the same. So I'm sort of taking everybody's evidence and thoughts and conclusions, comparing it to what I do know about and my own logical thoughts about, does this make sense, does this not make sense? Christopher Martinson, for instance, puts himself out there as an expert, but he says a lot of things that are inconsistent and don't make sense. He's the one who first brought to my attention this decorticate posturing, and he even said he can't explain it. When I contacted him in good faith to talk to him about this theory that Charlie had been hit from behind, my initial thought was that it was going to answer some of the questions he had in his own video that he couldn't answer, and he immediately went into an attack mode on me, which goes to a whole other area of research, which is the social engineers who exist in corporate news, social media. There are people who are trying to misdirect us in this investigation, and that goes right back to, where are these gunshots coming from? Certainly Kash Patel isn't being very forthcoming.
Yeah, I think that's what sort of triggered me onto this path. It was like, well, if I could contribute anything to help, then I should. And for the sake of just measuring the audio, I can build a pretty solid picture of how it reflected around, because I've got Google Earth. I can measure the distances, I can place surfaces, I can use what I'm doing with this frequency stuff that I'm doing here is I can actually place the size of the surface that the echo came from by the frequency of the echo, because a small surface can't reflect a 4.5 meter base wave, for example. So you have, it's very dependent on frequency. So
that's good.
That's what I think. You've given me a little direction there to actually, what I should do is place an alleged shooter location on each of the 4 points that have been suggested, and then test the echoes to see which one fits. I think that would be the most logical next step in my endeavor. Using the frequency, and I will measure the frequency to surface ratio to be able to ensure that frequency content could come from that surface. I think that would be a really good way forward to take the audio now, because you are right. There's lots of frequency. Sorry, there's lots of theory out there, and there's lots of different evidence in lots of different realms. And I think the point at which they all cross over will be the most likely case.
Yeah. Well, right. I agree with that. I mean, that is essentially the point of any kind of crowdsource effort, is that you know things, other people know things, we put those all together. And again, I mean, a lot of people who are maybe new to this concept of crowdsourcing doesn't necessarily mean that every single idea is worth considering. Certain things just don't make any sense. And we see a lot of that. There's also, like I said, with social engineering, there's a lot of opportunity for people to inject ideas that don't make sense. A lot of people have seen my crowdsource investigation effort where I've been offering this evidence bounty. And first of all, people misunderstood it to some extent. They thought it was just, give me evidence and I'll give you money. That wasn't it at all. I put this out because I was so confident in this thesis that Charlie Kirk was shot from behind, based on the limited evidence that we had when I started this October 4th, that I offered $1,000 of my own money to anyone who could present stronger evidence and a contradictory thesis that made this impossible to be correct. Because again, it's a thesis. That's different than me saying I've proven this. This is a thesis that I am defending, and so far nobody has been able to explain what these 3 dots could be. These got imaged by an iPhone. They were recorded there. Somebody said it was a bleed frame. Somebody said it was an insect. None of that makes any scientific sense. I've broken this down, and incidentally, other people were equally confident in the thesis that they've now contributed to this bounty. It's still available for people to either put more money into using their credit card or cryptocurrency. And until November 4th, competing theses, counter theses, can still vie to claim this bounty, but so far no one has been able to do it. I've had a lot of people come forward with stupid ideas that make no sense, that don't contradict this, and don't give us any better information, but nobody has been able to explain it with a scientific rigor that I've gone to. You know, my latest paper about this, Matthew, I don't know if you've seen this or if this is even in the realm of something you'd be interested in. One great thing from that evidence bounty is that it got us to the original video. And I was slightly incorrect. It wasn't recorded at 240 frames per second, but it was recorded in another 240 hertz mode of the iPhone. That was the Dolby Vision HDR mode. And when we look at what Apple has said in technical documents and marketing presentations about how Dolby Vision HDR works, and when we look at the Dolby patent that explains in detail how radiance maps work, how HDR video works, this actually strengthened my thesis as to how those three images got there and why they were imaged in 1/240th of a second, and how this layer of information is encoded along with a standard dynamic range MPEG stream, and how it prioritizes the brightness, the contrast, the radiometric values are prioritized over the temporal occurrence. This all scientifically explains how those images could have been photographed and encoded into a video, potentially out of sequence. Now, again, I'm not saying this proves it. I would take this evidence into court as an expert witness and attempt to convince a court that this proves it. But in terms of the court of public opinion, me and the people who have put their money where their mouths are in that evidence bounty, we agree that this proves it. And I certainly invite any expert in any field to come and disprove that. So again, Matt, I appreciate what you're doing. I love what you're doing. In fact, the evidence that you've brought forward doesn't particularly play into this thesis, but I'm very interested every time you put out a new video that doesn't make this impossible.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I'm not trying to take sides. I'm just measuring and providing what it says. And if it goes to the Locy Center at the end of it, then it goes to the Locy Center. I don't think it's going to, by what I've measured so far, but I'm happy for it to go anywhere. I mean, I'm not emotionally involved as such. You know, it's a terrible incident, of course, and all of that, but for me, the answer is just what does the audio say? And then once we've got that, then everything will have to fit inside that cage, because the laws of physics are ever evident, aren't they? You know, so.
Yeah, and it's another thing I really enjoy about your approach is that you are very clinical about it.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, you know, hopefully I'm doing a good enough job anyway. I mean, I'm very new to all of this. Even this interview, I'm nervous as hell doing these things. I'm not used to it.
Be. Should not be.
The another one thing I would like to point out about the gun sound itself, the initial boom.
Yes.
Is if I can just can you show my screen?
Yes.
Is if we look at this audio file here at 100 hertz. This is how I know it's not a crack. Well, it's got a crack in the high frequencies, but this is how I know it's a gun sound. Is because if you look at the audio file itself, it's broken. You see that?
What does that tell us?
That tells us that the impact on the microphone was too great for the microphone to
couldn't
process.
Be recorded, too low frequency. Wow.
And if I go to this down, this is 19 hertz. This is ridiculously low. But look at that on the other side.
Isn't a microphone typically like 20 hertz to 20
we have
megahertz
these
or
days,
something?
20 hertz usually. I mean, it depends on the mic, as you'll hear through all the different recordings that some mics like receive the bass really well and some don't. Some are better for vocal, you know. So it is just what it is. But they also carry something called 32-bit float, which
Right.
is which essentially means you can have a massive peak on there and it won't do this. And
But the
ultimately, it's
phones don't record in 32-bit float. They're mostly
no, it depends. I
16-bit
mean, maybe
48
some of the newer
kilohertz.
models might include it just to keep audio clarity. But like if we're breaking the waveform on the recording in, then it's a very loud event. And if it's in the low frequencies down here, that's not a clap.
Mm-hmm. That's
You
not
know,
the supersonic sound
yeah,
barrier getting
this one's
broken.
on.
That's
This one's
See, this is
this one's
so important, Matt, because this is, again, it goes to the type of thing that I'm talking about, the limitations of the technology. The layperson sees a video or hears a sound, and they don't keep in mind that this is not the actual event. This is a recording of an event that is seen through the limitations of the device that's recording it, right?
Yeah, and every device is different. I mean, I used the frequency analysis to analyze which one was a reflection and which one was the alleged thump. So this is what I actually came out with as the measurements of crack to thump, and you can see why it can't be used in court. There wasn't, this is way too wide, this is way too short, and this one goes absolutely nowhere.
So wait a minute. What do you mean? What does this show us?
This is the crack to thump that I measured using the thump. And I broke down the thump into frequency bands, so I know which one's the thump and which one's a reflection. I can separate the two just with frequency. So I've used the thump and I've measured crack to thump. So the yellow circle is the Bartholomew footage where he's standing in the middle there.
Right, right.
The green one is the front right 45 meter mic, which just my filing system, I'm afraid, but the guy standing over here.
Mm-hmm.
And this big old one here, I believe, is the one standing down there by that bush. So you can see that it's unreliable as far as measurements go, because you don't know where to stick the ruler.
Now, why is that? I'm confused by what you're telling us here.
Well, it's because the relationship of the crack to thump changes with the location of the shooter and the trajectory of the bullet and the force behind the mat cone.
But I thought that's what makes the whole calculation work, isn't it?
But that's what's broken it, because you can only make that calculation work if you know the power, the force behind the bullet. So you'd need to know what bullet type and how much powder was loaded in and how long the barrel was to be able to create the force behind the bullet. And you'd also need to know exactly the trajectory, because if it comes from over here and travels this way, then it's going to be a much different representation as if it come from here, or back here. You see?
But what about, Matthew,
it's
what
just
about
a
this?
crack to bang. It just doesn't work in this instance.
It doesn't work in this instance. Okay.
Yeah, because
there's this company, I'm sure you've heard of this in your research, but there's this company called Sound Thinking, which has created this system called ShotSpotter, which is like, they sell it to the cops and they put it in various cities. Now, the thing that's different about this than...
I've not seen that, but that is TDOA, I believe. That is exactly the technique I am applying to the reflections and to the phone to be able to measure directions and stuff.
Well, the thing that's different about this is that what they do is, let's say you're the NYPD or the London police or whatever. They come and they say, okay, we're going to put microphones that we know everything about, exactly like on this street corner, on this street corner, on this street corner. They know the frequency response and the kind of whatever technical thing about the microphone and its exact location. And then from that, they can tell what kind of gun it is and where.
Yep. That's literally what TDOA is. That is, they can measure the difference between the microphones. They can say it arrived at this microphone a fraction of a second before that microphone. They can measure that distance. They can put that into a map. This is exactly what I've done with these mics around here. And you measure the difference between the two microphones. You can calculate it against the bearing of north and go 360 degrees, and you can literally point which direction it came from pretty accurately as well. It's not, it might only be a tiny little measurement, but it's still a measurement, and it's pretty accurate. That's why they're using these systems nowadays, especially for gun violence, because you can prove so much with that little bit of information. I've just sort of turned it on its head and faced it back at them, you know.
But the part that I don't understand is because Mike Adams and John Cullen and various other people have said that they can essentially do the same exact thing as ShotSpotter using people's cell phones, where they determine where the people are standing by looking at their videos. Like the top right circle you've got right here, I think is coming from that Dolby Vision video that has the 3 projectiles. You've got Adam Bartholomew's video, and then you've got another video, I think, that I sent you, or I know the video that you're talking about.
I've got so many videos now.
But so we know approximately where these phones are. I think I'm still failing to understand why this can't work like ShotSpotter.
Because the crack to bang isn't what ShotSpotter's doing. ShotSpotter is measuring the time difference of arrival between microphones. Crack to bang is measuring how long the bang takes to arrive after the bullet passes. But unless you know where the bullet is traveling, how can you measure? And that's why the crack to bang can't work in this instance, because you've got nowhere to put the ruler, because nobody can decide where the shooter was.
But can't you just use multiple phones to do the same thing ShotSpotter is doing?
You can, but then how far away is the microphone from the line of trajectory? Because that will also affect it. You see, and that's the question. That's the problem that we have. How big is the MAC cone? We don't know. We know there is a MAC cone, but we don't know how big. We don't know what force was behind the bullet, so we can't figure out how big the MAC cone was at this time. We can make educated measurements towards that, but that's ballistics and thermodynamics. That's above my pay grade, you know. So, you know, leave that to the people that know that stuff. But like, as far as audio is concerned, you can't use crack to bang. I don't know the ballistic side of it, but I know sonic and I know hypersonic, supersonic. I know the relationship and how it changes over distance. And it doesn't matter whether it's a bullet. The sound source is irrelevant. The supersonic event changes with your position. How you perceive it, you know.
One last thing I want to ask you about before we wrap up today. Back to this now infamous video. I don't think I've got the Dolby Vision proper version here, but we don't need it for what I want to ask you about. This is some version of this video that showed up where see, there's one insect flying. We see it, or something flying by. It's not moving in the same way as the bullet towards the back of Charlie's head. It doesn't look the same. There's lots of things flying around this frame. And at some point in this video, I want to be careful again to not get a violent content strike, but at some point in this video, we see something up here, which our buddy Zeb Boykin has said is a mock cone. But the problem is it happens 12 video frames after or before.
I think I can explain that, actually.
What is that?
From an audio perspective, nothing to do with ballistics. But it is to do with ballistics. But what happens when a bullet goes transonic is the sound field behind, because it's ripping through the sound field. So what happens is you have a high pressure event at the front and a low pressure event at the back of the projectile. And what happens is when that bullet goes transonic and switches out of from supersonic to subsonic, there's a very violent sort of crossover between Mach 1.2 and 0.8. And what happens is when that crosses through that, the sound wave behind the bullet collapses in on itself and creates a vapor sort of puff. It's like, you know, if you have a wet tea towel and you whip it in the air and it leaves that little puff of vapor in the air.
Yeah.
It's very much like that. And it's the sound field collapsing. And what happens is it forces all the water molecules in the air to sort of join together and create a puff. By the time you see that vapor cloud, that little puff, the bullet is already well on its way. It's well past that point. And that puff will stick around for, I don't know, 30 milliseconds, 50 milliseconds. You know, it will stay there for a second. That's why it's not moving. That's why it's not doing. That's my take on it from an audio perspective, is the sound barrier, the sound field is collapsing on itself behind the bullet after.
But isn't that also such a rapid event? 12 video frames is like half a second.
Yeah, but it's like if you have cracked the wet tea towel again, the tea towel's already gone, but the puff of vapor is still in the air. It's gonna hang there for a little bit before it dissipates, and I think that's what we're seeing there. I think it's a bullet going transonic. If it was fired accidentally meant to be subsonic, and then the heat of the crowd, then you've got the moisture of the grass and the reflection of the heat of the concrete, things like that will change the atmospherics from point A to point B. So you could have an event in the middle where it switches from transonic to supersonic or supersonic to transonic, depending
I get
on...
that part. My issue is it
Yeah.
just seems so temporally far away from the
Yeah, that's just
bullet
because
being fired.
the bullet's already gone. The sound field, the pressure wave behind the bullet will take a tiny bit of time to collapse on itself, and then that vapor wave will take a tiny bit of time to appear. For all the water molecules to join together, and then by that point, the bullet's probably already inside Charlie, or well on its way, or right next to Charlie at that point. It's just that vapor wave is an after effect. It's not something that happens directly with the bullet. It's just like where all the fields sort of collapse.
And how do we explain it if it comes before?
What do you mean? It comes before the bullet?
I'm trying to find it in this video. It's hard to see.
Yeah, I know the one you're on about. I did watch Seb's presentation on it, and it does make sense because,
I think it doesn't actually. And he also was, sort of hand waving away my explanation with something that equally didn't make sense, and then called me a Jew and blocked me on Twitter. So I just found his whole approach to this very suspicious and not correct. Anyway, enough about that. I can't seem to find the thing here, so it's pointless.
No, it's okay. I think I know exactly what you're in reference to. And yeah, I mean, from an audio perspective, that is what I would expect to see with a sound barrier or pressure wave collapsing after a sonic event. Now, whether that's on the way, again, that's ballistics. That's outside of my pay grade. I'm just the audio guy. That's how I would explain that if it was a vaporwave or whatever you call it. I don't know what to call it, but that's how I would explain it from an audio perspective.
It just looks like something reflecting in the window in a strange way.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's above my... I don't know. I couldn't give you any concrete answers on what it is, but if it is a transonic event, then that would explain what it is. So
anyway, all right. Well, listen, Matt, it was very good speaking with you today. I hope that people will follow your work on X. They can find you at Audio Freak. It's audio 2_ and then FREQ. And that's a very good way for people to follow your work. People can keep up on all the videos there. It's too bad I didn't have this thing a little bit more clearly accessible for us to look at, but people can check you out. I'll follow up with you and send you exactly if it's before or after, and we can drill in on what was going on with that. People can also watch all of your videos on YouTube, also audio-freak. Help Matthew get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, everybody. And don't forget, you can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And of course, people can follow me on X at JG_CSTT. If you've got a better countermanding thesis, something that can disprove what I've said about Charlie Kirk being shot from behind, feel free to go to crowdsourcethetruth.org and you can try to claim this bounty. Contact me, read the terms here and conditions. You can also boost the bounty if that's what you'd like to do using cryptocurrency or your credit card. Matt, we'll have you back soon when we get some more research going, and I will be sure to send you the exact timing and screen captures of everything to do with that puff I don't think it's a supersonic event. I don't see how a rifle could be shot that close to people and nobody turns around and looks at it right over there. Doesn't make any sense. The rifle was somewhere in that area, but I don't think it was up there.
Yeah, I'll just let the internet decide on that one. And I appreciate the direction. So I will I'll draw the reflection map from each location, and we'll have a look at that later down the line.
Sounds very good. Have a great weekend, Matt. Happy Halloween. Thanks for watching, everybody.